This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Now, prepare yourselves for a Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels special edition.
Greetings, Scoundrels, and thanks for joining us for this Scoundrels special edition. I am your host, Dennis Keithly, and with me are my friends and co-hosts, Jay Krebs and Darth Taxus. Hey, guys, what's going on?
Hey, really excited for this very special edition of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. This is Jay, by the way.
Yeah. I'm working on my paint by numbers set right now as we speak because I'm inspired. Nice. So inspired.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
It's a daisy.
You know, they actually have a lot of paint by number apps now on the phone and tablets and things. Huh. So, anyways,
seems a little weird.
That being said, that leads us into our discussion this week. As I mentioned, this is a Scoundrel special edition. If you're new to the show, these are in between episodes where we forgo analysis of the news and focus on something a little bit more specific. And so, Jay, this week we have an interview with Michael Pasquale that you did. So can you kind of set up what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so bummed that you guys couldn't join me that day for this because I know we had tried to plan ahead. But of course, life has a way of sometimes, preventing the best plans from happening. So I had to go solo on this one, no pun intended. But yeah, I was very, very fortunate to interview Michael Pasquale, which of course is a great friend of the Scoundrels and the S-Cube Pod family. And he is a 2D artist from New York City, and he has created a lot of different types of artwork, everything from pins to prints to you name it. And he has a very special celebration print that is now available for pre-order on DarkInk. And so he alludes a little bit to that. So this interview actually was done before that official announcement. So yeah, there's a little bit in there too, but he gives a lot of great background to himself and his work in this one. So really excited to share it with all the Scoundrels.
I'm a Rudy 2D artist.
Right. And so, yeah, the idea a bit is that with the celebration fast approaching, and we know we have the Artist Alley there, and we're kind of giving our tips out as we go. And just, we've been sharing news about celebration. We thought it'd be fun to have one of the artists on. And as Jay said, who better than Michael Pasquale, who's been such a good friend to us. So without further ado, let's go to the interview.
Welcome, Scoundrels, to this very special edition of Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels. This is your host for the day, Jay Krebs, and due to some scheduling conflicts, I will not be joined by my two friends and co-hosts, Dennis Keithly and Darth Taxus. Although Obi-Wan might argue that there's no such thing as luck, I am very lucky to have today's guest all to myself. I am honored to be joined by a very talented artist who will be showcased this year in Artists Alley at Star Wars Celebration Chicago in April. And he has become a friend of the S-Cubed Pod family, and he is a 2D artist. And today he's agreed to talk about himself, his artistry, and just kind of life in general. So without any further ado, let's give a huge Scoundrel shout out and welcome to Michael Pasquale. Michael, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Doing good, hanging in there.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you're so busy, which rightfully so. I guess it's always a good problem to have, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, it's so great to finally talk to you in person too, because
it's long overdue, actually, yeah.
Yeah, like I guess in person is not really true, but as in person as we're going to get until April, right?
Right.
Because you really have been a great friend of the show and to all of us as well. And you've been so incredibly gracious, and you're so talented. So yes, I'm squeeing with fangirl joy over here just getting to talk to you. So are you ready to dive in with some questions?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So I guess the first question that I have, which, is always kind of an opener, is, what's your background and training in art? And did you always want to become an artist, or was it just something that you evolved into? And tell everybody exactly, what you do and where you're based, and just give us some great background.
Okay. So I guess I was pretty much always into drawing as far back as I could remember picking up a crayon, I guess. My family was pretty talented. My sister was really into like graphic design and stuff. My aunt did a lot of painting, but never professionally, but I was always attracted to that kind of stuff, even when I was super young. And I guess, even watching cartoons like, Bugs Bunny or Pink Panther and stuff, I would watch cartoons and be like, I think I could do that. And I'm like 6 years old. I'm like, I think I could do that for a living. I wonder how much they get paid. So I was always drawn to cartooning and illustration. And as I got older, I was always going to the library and picking up like how to draw books, how to draw monsters and dinosaurs and stuff like that. So I was kind of like teaching myself like this super basic stuff, even, like through first grade, second grade. And once I got older and started getting into comic books, just like everyone else, wanted, like a comic book artist, that's what I was leaning towards. And I was like submitting stuff to Marvel and DC when I was like 13, 14. And when I was in high school, I was going to conventions and talking to editors, and like I was dead set on becoming an artist. But it didn't pan out that way. And I met an editor at Image Comics that gave me a lot of great pointers and actually like called me and, said like, you're on the right path. And he was like a real big help. He just said, you need some training. So then that's when I, decided to go to art school. I went to art school in New York City at the School of Visual Arts, and started doing illustration and cartooning. And then I changed it to animation. And then I just dropped out because I had no direction at all. So like 2 years into it, I had left, and I just kind of started freelancing from there. And actually ended up working as a doorman. And I met the owner of a toy company that lived in the building during that time. And he would always see me drawing at the desk and stuff. And like I was always like doing something. I would never give up. I was super young, maybe like 23. And
wow.
And I had a great job. And I was like, is this it? Is this for me? And I was losing my mind. I was like, no, it's got to be more, like staring at the lobby floor every day. But one day he was like, look, I need an artist to come on board and design toys. And I was like, if you're serious, like, I'll show you what I can do. And he gave me a few projects to freelance on the side, and then finally brought me on board. So I was, that was like my first real professional gig, where I did that for about like 10 years. So I was making action figures and plush dolls and designer vinyl and PVC statues. So like I started out doing packaging. I'm doing a lot of graphic stuff and like everything I didn't learn in school. So I pretty much taught myself through experience, and it just kept evolving and evolving. And then I had left that job to be a director, working in video game industry, making prop replicas from video games. And it's just funny how things work out. Everything just like laid out. And then I was working with a studio in LA where I met one of my best friends now. His name's Miguel. And he was like, man, you really got to get on like Instagram and social media and show all the stuff you've done. People are going to like it. I'm like, nobody cares about all this like behind the scenes stuff. And he was like, just do it. And my wife actually made the account for me and started posting my work without me knowing. And then she's like, look, you got 1,000. Yeah, she's like, you got 1,000 followers. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? What is this? So after that, it just kept snowballing. And now I still kind of do the same thing where I'm right now I'm designing and running production for a new company here in New York. And on the side, I was doing like a lot of fan art and stuff, and that's how you guys found me. And the Star Wars community was just so welcoming. Like it was like the best feeling, to see like everyone sharing my work and like they're all excited for it and stuff. So that became sort of like a side hustle, and I still do like product development now on the side, and here we are.
Wow, what a great story. I mean, you were actually so lucky to know what you wanted to do so young in life. I mean, this was obviously a calling for you, and it's always been a passion for you. And that is so awesome. It really is. Yeah,
it's funny how things worked out. I'm always now, that's why I'm always like a firm believer of things happening for a reason. Like even when I was young, like around 6, I had a best friend who lived downstairs, and he was into drawing like cartoons and stuff. And then as we got older, he was into graffiti a lot, and he would show me his pieces, and he was teaching me a lot of stuff. So between him and my sister and like my aunt and then once I got into like school, a lot more, just like there's so many people that are talented out there. I just kind of like fed off of it. and it just kept building up.
Oh yeah, I mean, building a network is like half the battle, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And and you just getting yourself out there. I mean, sending your work out to places like Marvel as early as 13 years old, that's impressive. I mean, most 13-year-olds would never even consider that. And so, I mean, that is so great. Yeah, I was looking at your bio on artstation.com, and I did notice in there that you had designer vinyl toys and plush dolls and action figures and full-scale replicas. So I'm so glad that you touched on that, and it really does show your scope as an artist and how talented you really are. So
thanks so much. I try to make myself essential and like a huge asset wherever I work for, whatever client I work for. I try to be like, hey, I could do this for you. Like, you don't have to look for someone else. So they always come back to me like, yeah, I know how to do social media stuff. I could do a new logo. I could do this or whatever. So it's always just kept me connected with the right people, I guess.
Right. Absolutely. And so you're in New York now, right? Because I know that you were in the process of kind of moving last fall. So you were in Florida before that, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. Okay. My daughter was getting sick a lot here from the weather. And I was like, you know what, we should probably change to a better climate. And it worked out for the most part. It was kind of dead for me. My wife was working out there too, but it was just kind of dead. I don't know why. I was freelancing, but I wasn't getting the same kind of vibe that I was in New York. And then that's when I did the Kickstarter, and I was like, well, it's pretty dead. Let me try this Kickstarter thing, and I'll have the rest of the year. And that has been put off ever since I came back to New York. It's been nonstop, so I haven't even gotten a chance to update any of that stuff yet. But as soon as I landed back in New York, it was just like nonstop jobs piling up. So I guess it's just the atmosphere, and people are like, oh, you're back in New York, great. Well, let's set up a meeting, blah, blah, blah. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's definitely a good problem to have. And thank goodness for social media too, right?
Oh,
I mean, yeah. Because I honestly, I probably would never have found you in little old Ohio. You know what I mean? So, I mean, definitely props to your wife too on doing that for you. That's great.
She's been on since, MySpace and all that stuff. Like, she's a pro at all the social media stuff. But I was always kind of like, no, I don't want people to know what I'm eating. I don't want, pictures of my vacation. I'm like, people don't see my dog. Like, I was never into it. But when I started following other artists, and it just got me really hyped. And then I noticed, the more I was posting work, the more people were like, man, you should do a show. So I did a couple of shows, and then they're like, oh, I want to get prints. So I started a website, and I got prints going out there, and then pins started coming into play. And I was like, man, it's so easy now to make a brand for yourself and make that your side hustle, while you're working. So like everyone now I see now doing Patreon and things like that, even cosplayers, everyone's making a little bit of money here and there. So social media is just like blowing up. And I'm still relatively new. I think I started like 2015 or something like that. So I'm still pretty new, still learning stuff. So
yeah, and who knew? I mean, when we were all like growing up and as kids, that this would be a medium that would bring people together so much. So yeah, it's insane. Great. So now that you're in New York, what different types of artwork are you creating now? What are you focusing on? What's your focal point?
I was mostly just coming back for some steady work. So right now I'm just doing like product development for a lot of different studios. And I don't really do as much artwork, which is something that I kind of wanted to take a break from. I think like last January, like I kind of took a long break. It just gets like really unhealthy after a while. And you're just like, I work like 16 hours a day sometimes, and weekends and holidays. So I'll miss a lot of things. I'll miss birthdays and, events or whatever, just because I have to get a deadline done. So I kind of took a break from that. So then when the steady work started coming in, that's what I was more drawn to. So it's mostly like photo editing and things that don't really drain my mind that much, which is I'm kind of leaning more towards. But then when Lucasfilm said, to come out and do some artwork. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, of course, like I'll do anything.
Yeah. When Lucasfilm calls you, answer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the other thing too. Like when there was a time when they were just posting and sharing my artwork on all their platforms, and I was like, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, kind of in the back of my head, like, I wonder what they're cooking over here. So, and then finally they just reached out and was like, look, you got to join us in Celebration. And I was like, okay.
Wow, that is so great. I'm so excited for you. I mean, what a great honor. And I'm telling you what, Artist Alley is definitely one of the highlights for me every time I go to a con. So I just appreciate the artwork so much and the different sorts of media and the different sorts of just creative, touches that everybody brings to it. So I'm super excited for the world to get to see what you do because, Michael, we just love you and we just know enough about you around here. So
you guys are huge supporters. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, heck yeah. I mean, you got to support greatness, right? I mean, so, you've been inspired, you said, by a lot of different things and obviously comic books and just the whole idea of watching these Looney Tunes and that kind of thing. So, out of all of the things that you've created and all the inspirations that you've had, what's your favorite character to create and why? Or what is your favorite medium for creating art? What is like when you do something like what's your zone? You know what I mean? Like what's your favorite things?
Damn, it's I don't know. It comes from a lot of different places. I guess character-wise, it would have to be Luke Skywalker. Like I could always draw Luke no matter what, and even when I'm stuck in like a kind of an artist block, I could just watch Return of the Jedi and be like, yeah, I'm gonna have to draw Luke Skywalker again, or like in The Last Jedi too, I was blown away at the ending, and I was just like, this is really cool, so I gotta draw this. But a lot of the times too, it just comes from like scrolling Twitter. Sometimes I'll see conversations and somebody will throw out, like, what if this happens? And I'm like, I want to draw that. That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that comes from just talking to friends and stuff like that, and catching conversations. And a lot from other artists. Like I'll see something that someone will post and I'm like, wow, I kind of want to do this shading or this lighting. Let me take a shot at that. So I'm always kind of, I guess always trying new stuff and experimenting, even though it's still kind of my style. But I'll just I like to experiment a lot when it comes to my artwork. I never like to do the same thing twice, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. I can totally relate to that. As I don't consider myself an artist per se, but I do a lot of sewing and pseudo, like some cosplaying and that kind of thing. So I totally get where, sometimes the inspiration just sort of comes on the fly and you have to grab it when it's there because it definitely can be fleeting sometimes. And if you don't grab that opportunity and it goes away, then, it's not, sometimes you can't get it back. Am I right?
Right. That's exactly how it goes. As soon as it hits, that's one thing I've learned. As soon as you get an idea and inspired, now I write everything down. And by the time I get back to it, I'm like, well, I kind of don't want to do this now. Or I just don't have time to get, like the Spider-Verse exploded, and I wanted to do a lot of stuff for that. I just didn't have any time. But that was, really inspirational movie that I wanted to get some pieces out. But unfortunately, that's just how it goes. But once, inspiration hits for any artist, just do it at that very moment, and then it'll just be more satisfying, when you get it done.
Absolutely, because it doesn't seem forced either.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It's from the heart, yeah. So have you ever had an artistic nightmare? Like something you really had your hopes up for, something you really wanted to do, and then you were just like, meh, nope, didn't work out.
No, I don't think my Kickstarter.
Oh.
So I think that didn't go planned as well as I would have hoped, but I'll get to all that stuff for sure, and have my book out there and everything. But aside from that, not really a lot of stuff. I have a lot of projects that I would work on for maybe a month, and then it'll just get scrapped, by the licensor, the studio. Or even like the sales weren't that great on the pre-order or something like that, and then the product will get canceled. So that happens all the time. And at the beginning, it really bummed me out, but it's just part of the industry you work in when you're doing like merchandise and stuff like that. So you get kind of used to it.
Do you think that's been the biggest struggle for you in terms of like the bureaucracy and just the hoops you have to jump through to get things done?
It's always, dealing with licensors, and this is my first time, dealing with Disney and Lucasfilm, and they're very, meticulous and they're very specific, which is good and bad. But it's just like I have that rebel instinct in me to not do what they want. So
Sure.
it's like that kind of thing where like I'm just gonna see what happens.
No, I get it, because you get so excited about something and you get so passionate about it, and then it's like, oh wait, I can't do that. All right, well, yeah, I guess you're signing my check. So
Yeah, that's what it'll come down to, and then it's just like, let me just get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So that's gotta be rough, though. Would you give any advice to someone that looks at you as a kid, or a young adult and says, "Oh wow, I would love to do what this guy does." What advice would you give them?
I don't know. You really need to be dedicated, and you really need to be patient. I think more than anything. And like you mentioned before, it's really about networking. So, and kind of being charismatic and stuff and friendly. So that has, like, besides the actual work, you do have to have talent, but it's definitely a struggle. And you really, it's kind of lonely at points because you're just at your desk all the time. And I follow like a lot of animators and comic artists, and they've gone through like the same stuff, and where they're sleeping at the office because they have to get their deadlines done, And there's times when I was working on a collector's edition, like the whole entire set I did for Batman Arkham Origins. So we did the statue, we did a book, and we did all these ancillary items. So I had to do the whole project start to finish, and I had to stay awake like 48 hours, like twice, and like keep going nonstop just to meet the milestones that they give you. So it's really unhealthy. I'll put that out there.
It can be.
If you can't balance it, and take a break and exercise or go out with friends, and if it's come down to that, like that's where I'm at now. I'm just like too old for this sort of thing. So kind of more into directing, which I was doing before. I was more of an art director, and let the young kids do all the grunt work and stuff.
Yeah. Now you sound like Obi-Wan. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, because I have some kids at school that they're so passionate about art, and and some of them really do have some great talent. But I always hate to say, like, oh yeah, you should do this, because I know that an artist's life can be really, really hard. And, but then I want to say, no, go follow those passions, because life is short, man. And you got to do what you got to do. So, yeah.
It's long to, get, in that Lucasfilm. So I was like, the circle is now complete. So I can relax, and then I'll finish up the book. And like, these are two things I wanted to do in my life. So just never give up. It's pretty much, the mantra.
I love it. So obviously you were super excited when you found out you were going to be at Celebration Chicago. And I remember the announcement on social media, and I was so tickled for you too. I mean, it made my heart smile, because I'm like, yes, I was waiting for this. This is so great. So what can we expect from you out of Celebration? What kind of projects are you working on? Can you tell us? I mean, or is it a big surprise?
Yeah, well, there's the one piece that's going to be an exclusive at the show. And there's some other stuff I'm working on that hasn't been announced yet. But it's going to be awesome. That's all I can say.
Yay. Well, of course it is.
Yeah. It's trying to maybe stand out a little bit more than the other folks that are in the show. But we'll see how that goes. Because I always tend to go overboard, especially in this. It might be my one shot. You never know. So I just put 1,000% into it. So.
Yeah, you go big or you go home, right?
Exactly. That's exactly.
Oh, now I'm even more excited to see it, because I'll be definitely picking that one up.
I have a feeling, I have a strong feeling everyone's going to really go crazy with it. So.
Oh, yay! Oh my gosh, it just gave me the chills. So with Star Wars in general, I mean, how did you get into Star Wars? So you talked about cartoons, you talked about Looney Tunes and comics. So when was the first time you saw any of the movies? And what kind of impact did it have on you? I
don't even know. I was born kind of with Han Solo in my hand. That's like my earliest memory was the Han Solo Kenner figure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think I didn't really, like the memories didn't really pop up maybe until Empire was out, maybe a little bit after. I do remember Return of the Jedi vividly, going to see that with my mom. She took me, and I credit her with this kind of passion that I have, because she loves Star Wars, but she was always there, you know, lunch boxes and pajamas and bed sheets and all that stuff, Halloween costumes. Like, she was always like feeding me Star Wars. And I guess at that young age, she noticed that this was something I was really excited about, even like 3 or 4 years old or whatever. And she would pick me up from school and, you know, give me like a Gamorrean guard figure just out of nowhere, you know. I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you. You know? But and to this day, like we went to see Solo together, and that was really special for me. And I'm glad we got to do that. And she was actually watching me like draw the Solo tribute piece, because I was at her house mostly during that time. She had a broken foot, so I was helping her around the house and shopping and stuff. So I stayed with her for a little bit, and she was super excited when I told her, you know, like, oh, this guy followed me and he worked on the movie, and this one did the droids, and like she was going nuts for all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
I really credit her to all that stuff. And by the way, Gamorrean Guard is her favorite. So
that's awesome. Go Mom. Oh, you know, I'm sitting here with like the biggest smile on my face right now, because, you know, I have 2 boys myself, and she sounds just like me. Like, we need to get together and have tea or something, because that's how, you know, my boys were the same way. They were fed Star Wars. That's a great way to put it growing up. And they kind of didn't have, you know, like a lot of people would say, do your kids like Star Wars? And I said, well, they don't really have a choice, but yeah, I guess they do.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of other stuff going on, but she noticed it. I know she did, because every Christmas was just amazing. Like, I always had, like, you know, I had my tonsils taken out. And after that, I remember that I was in kindergarten, and my brother throws the Millennium Falcon on my lap while I'm still in the hospital bed. And I couldn't talk, and I was just freaking out. So, like, you know, they always knew, like, this is what I liked, and it's stuck with me ever since. You know, even when it was like nothing was happening, I was still looking, you know, at video games and you know, the novels or the comics or whatever that was happening. So it was always there in the background. And then once like Disney took over, that's when I kind of mentally said, now is the time. You know, maybe I could do something, and I just started drawing Star Wars every day.
Oh, wow. That is so great. Yeah. Star Wars is definitely great therapy for anything, no matter if it's tonsils or I don't care what it is. Yes. So what are you excited right now when it comes to Star Wars? I mean, just in general, just when you think of Star Wars, what excites you about it right now?
There's just so much going on. I mean, I'm pretty much excited for everything. There's you know, the new cartoon Resistance is going really well. Really hyped for Clone Wars, The Mandalorian, and new Cassian series. Really hyped for that, and just, you know, episode 9. I'm like, I wasn't as excited, but I see more people talking about it, and I just get even more hyper, and I can't wait to see what they have in store. So this is so much. There's so much going on, and there was a time when there was nothing at all happening.
Oh, right. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, we all remember the dark times, right?
Yeah. So
you're
now
just
that it's
thirsting.
Just like, yeah, it's just flooding with all this great new characters and new stories, and I'm just like a sponge, just taking it all in.
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, I have just like an offhanded question here. Out of the different styles of animation, you've got Clone Wars, you've got Rebels, you've got Resistance, you've got the old Tartakovsky Clone Wars. Like which one of those is your personal favorite? Which one are you more drawn to?
It definitely was the Tartakovsky series. Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when
I can see that.
It was like, you know, anime influenced, since it was really simple. But just the timing that was also, and like the storyboarding they were doing for that, it just all worked so perfectly with Star Wars. And now with the Galaxy of Adventures, and they're doing like the short clips of the old trilogy and the prequels, that's blown me away too. I really, really am enjoying that stuff. The CGI stuff, at first I was, when like the Clone Wars movie came out, I was kind of reluctant, and but that grew on me a lot too. But like the 2D flat art stuff is kind of where my heart was always going to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it reflects a lot of your own personal style too. So
right.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars? Like who would be your favorite one to draw, do you think?
Oh man, probably Asajj.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love you for saying that. I'm like, seriously.
Yeah, I need to draw her, but yeah, she was really awesome, and in Clone Wars too.
Oh yeah,
she was so great. That's one of my favorite characters. Yeah.
All right, well, you need to do that. Get on that, Michael. Come on, you have nothing else to do right now, right? So, is there anything in Star Wars that you find difficult to capture in your art?
I mean, I've never been big into vehicles and stuff, so it's probably, I'm not really a technical artist. I'm more of a character designer kind of stuff. So like, I can do vehicles, but it just takes me longer. And in my head, I'm always trying to figure out the mechanics. Like even when I draw like a blaster or even a lightsaber, in my head, I'm trying to figure out the components inside it and kind of trying to envision it in 3D. So that's kind of just slows me down a little bit. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, I mean, everything's just awesome. Like, and I have so much fun drawing all the characters and backgrounds and cities and everything like that.
That's great. That's great. And that really does take a lot because there's so much detail with, like you said, with all the gadgets and all the weapons, and it's just insane.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, even with the backgrounds, I remember, did you ever play Lego Star Wars?
Oh yeah.
Like the video games. Yes. Well, I remember having so much more of an appreciation for all the backgrounds just from playing the game, because you had to like open everything up and get all the coins and, get all the things to fall out. So, and just to be intrinsically able to pick that out as an artist is probably, also not just intrinsically able to do it, but somewhat challenging in a way too, I'm sure.
Oh, it totally is. And you just have like more respect for the design team, that all the set designers and costume designers too. That's another thing, like the costumes become more intricate. And I learned a lot through designing toys, because you have to be 100% accurate to the movie or the TV show or whatever it is you're working on. So that I would take like 1 million screenshots at every angle just to try and figure out the costuming and the textures and stuff like that. And everything kind of fits in its place, especially when you're doing like set designs and stuff like that. So you're actually just learning more stuff that I would never have thought of, when I'm picking apart scenes, and then I would just pop up like, oh man, this is great. Who thought of this?
Yeah, because every costume is almost like its own brand. You think of Rey and you think of what she wears, or you think of Kylo Ren's helmet and how it's, just the lines and the form and everything in it that you have to replicate so perfectly. Wow, I really take my hat off to you, because I mean, I can't draw to save my life, but so that's why I love people like you.
Thanks.
So just a few more questions. Coming up, we have the Phantom Menace on the 20th anniversary this year, which is, of course, is going to be a big thing at Celebration. So just a little trip down memory lane. What was your first time seeing it, and what was your favorite part or favorite characters?
Oh man, it was, wow. I was in Florida, actually. I had just left art school and had no direction. So my parents were like, well, if you're not doing anything, we're going to retire, and we got a house in Florida. And I was like, okay. And like, you're coming with us. And I was like, okay. And this was around the time Phantom Menace was coming out. I didn't get to see it in theaters. And my dad and I were really like not seeing eye to eye on a lot of things, and a lot of it had to do with artwork and stuff like that. And I could still hear his voice telling me to work in sanitation.
Oh boy! Yeah.
And to just stop. But I never stopped. My dad was the type to always be realistic, but he would always like support me 100%. And he would drive me to like New Jersey or Connecticut or Philadelphia and take me to like meet artists and editors and show them my portfolio. And he'd always be like, oh, so what's going to happen now? They're going to, deny you. And I'm like 16. He's like, what makes you think, you're going to get a job? And I'm like, because I'm good. So if they shoot me down, I'll come back and try again. I'll come back, the next show. So, that was kind of like what made me still pursue it even more. But at the time when Phantom Menace came out, we were really going at it. So I had moved out and came back to New York on my own, and just found an apartment right away and got a job right away. And I was working in a video store, and I had ordered the collector's edition on VHS that came, it was the widescreen that came with like the little art book and like the film reel. And so I had special ordered that. I was the only one that got it. And I went right home, put it on, my TV combo, VCR combo TV.
Nice.
And And I was like, as soon as it started, I was like blown away. I was like, man, Qui-Gon is so badass, and like everything was like going well. But by the time it finished, I was like, what the hell was that? what happened? So I didn't get it at first, and then I must have watched it like 6 times in the same. I just kept repeating it over and over. I had the whole day off, and I just stayed home and watched it on repeat. And so I didn't like it at first. I was like, oh, the next one will be great. I love the pod racing and everything, and I love Darth Maul, but it just didn't. Like a lot of people, it was just like this is kind of different than what we're used to. So, but I ended up loving it in the long run, and the same with all the prequels. I'm probably actually watched like all the movies at least once a week. I have it playing in the background while I work. But yeah, Phantom Menace, out of all the prequels, Phantom Menace is probably my favorite.
Wow, after all that.
Yeah.
Right. You know, well, it's true. I mean, and as an OT kid, you know, growing up with that, it's kind of, it's a complete 180 from what you're used to.
It was very jarring at first.
Yeah. So is there anything in there that's inspired you in your art, or, you know, anything that you like to depict in your art that's like kind of a signature piece for you?
I don't know. I mean, I picked up like I became a huge fan of Doug Chiang, and I was just like studying like all his styles, and the costuming. Like once I got the bigger art book, I was like addicted to that whole thing. So a lot of those, I guess that style was also, I took a lot of those like character designs and stuff and kept that in mind. And especially with like the vehicles and stuff too. Like I just learned a lot from that. And I try to kind of do that kind of concept art kind of stuff whenever I'm starting like a new art piece. But I just, man, everything was great. Character, the aliens and everything, pod racing again. Just loved everything about it after all that. Yeah.
Well, I love that you say you have it on in the background too while you're working.
Oh yeah, I always have some hours. Yeah, no matter if it's on like TNT, forget it. I just leave it on.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. It's like, okay, I own all the movies in like 17 different formats, and it's like you're like, oh, squirrel. Okay, dog, squirrel. Okay, I'm gonna watch this now, even though I don't have to. Oh my goodness. So this is so great. So great. Well, Michael, I got to thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to speak with us. And you've been an absolute joy to talk to. And of course, you've been so incredibly gracious with your fans. And, you know, the Star Wars community, as you said, is it's kind of a special thing. There's, you know, we're a family, and we fight sometimes, and, you know, things kind of get ugly at times too. But, you know, in the end, we love each other. So
yeah, that's true. It's true.
So tell everybody, where can our listeners find you online, and if they want to get in touch with you and find your art and just in general?
You can find me on Instagram at Michael Pasquale Art, and on Twitter at Mike Pasquale Art. And on ArtStation, I'm also on ArtStation. I haven't posted. I have to update that too. But yeah, you can hit me up anywhere on Twitter or Instagram.
And you're always such a great responder too. I mean, yes. Well, seriously, I mean, you're very personable with everyone.
Yeah, I try to. I've made so many friends. It's crazy, and I just anyone that like I never thought like I'll draw something and someone's like, oh my God, I love this. I want to own it. It just blows my mind every time. Like a new fan will come aboard and say, I didn't know this belonged to you. I'm a dedicated fan and been following you for years, and it's just amazing. So I try to talk to everybody that I can as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I have to say, one of my favorite pieces from you is when you were so gracious to agree to do my yoga mat artwork for me.
That was a good one.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that. It makes me want to do yoga for days.
Sports.
So, actually, I just kind of lay there, but you know.
Well, that was around the time the whole Raylo thing was starting, and there was a lot of commotion, and people were unhappy, and people were doing too much fan art. And I was like, people are going to create what they want to create. And like we said, once inspiration hits, just do it. So that's what inspired me to do that piece and throw it back to Attack of the Clones, right? That was the poster. So I was like, I kind of try to mix all that stuff up. But again, it was all because of something I just came across on Twitter. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do this.
Yeah, talk about ring theory and bringing it all back to Attack of the Clones. That's amazing. Well, Michael, thank you once again for doing this for us. And Scoundrels, make sure you check out all of the art on michaelpasquale.com. And of course, you can always find him on Twitter, as he said. And if you'd like to send some questions directly to us, we can be found on email at sqpod@retrozap.com. So Scoundrels, thank you so much for joining us today again. And may the Force be with you.
All right. Well, Jay, well done on the interview. That was a lot of fun to listen to. And as you were saying at the beginning, we didn't have an opportunity to. You didn't have an opportunity to talk to Michael about his print in detail for Celebration because it hadn't been unveiled yet. But why don't you tell us what we know about it now?
Oh, absolutely. So now that we know that the official Celebration print from Michael Pasquale that's available is in celebration of the Rogue One movie itself. And so there's a nice conglomeration of different characters and scenes and things from Rogue One. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So if you're a fan of Rogue One specifically, and of Michael Pasquale's work, you can head over to DarkInk, where you can pre-order that. And you can also go right to the StarWars.com website for all of the links for Celebration and the Artist Alley to check out Michael's work, as well as the other offerings from some of the other artists that will be in Artist Alley. And make sure if you are at Celebration to look up Michael himself. He's amazing, and he'd love to see everyone that takes the time to come see him.
All right. Well, again, excellent interview. I'm glad you had a chance to talk to him. Mm-hmm. So that's going to do it for episode 75.2. But before we go, guys, what do you have going on this week that the Scoundrels can look forward to?
Well, for me, as always, you can find me right here on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels and our regular editions and special editions and That's So Wizard. And you can find me over on Discord channel as well and talking about all things Star Wars. And you can also find my archive blogs over at Coffee with Kenobi and my Core Worlds Couture fashion review blogs as well.
Yeah, and you can find me over on The Geek Supreme with Scott Murray, Jeff McGee, and Regina Davis. It's a fun little geek-centric game show. And also you'll find me at the art supply store because all my paint's dried up, guys. I can't finish this thing. The only one that works is white. So it's basically like a snowfield now with numbers.
Rough.
With numbers. Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, you can find my comic reviews on RetroZap.com, and each month I'm talking Star Wars comics with Jovial J. Shepard on Jedi Journals. My wife Beth and I are covering each new episode of Discovery on the RetroZap Podcast Network, and it's exclusive to that, and that would be Warp Trails. So if you want to find us on social media, we are at SQPod on Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook at facebook.com/SQPod. You can email us at sqpod@retrozap.com. You can follow Darth Taxus on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Jay is at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features more than a dozen shows covering everything from retro gaming, movies, collecting, and a whole lot of Star Wars. You subscribe to the network feed to get them all in one place. So we'd love a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. The more we get, the better the show does. And just tell your friends. Nothing works better than word of mouth. That's going to do it for this Scoundrel Special Edition. We'll talk to you all soon with another episode of Starship Sabers and Scoundrels. Until then, may the Force be with you.